Marth is by far the most iconic Fire Emblem character. From appearances in 5 mainline games, multiple spin-offs, and even Super Smash Bros., he's clearly the face of the series. But what if I told you his name was never Marth? For the sake of clarity, I will refer to him as Marth for the duration of this video, but that said, let's get right into it. Marth's first appearance in the West was in Smash Melee, in which he was known as Marth, which I'm certain you are all aware of. While I wouldn't consider Smash canon by any means, it could certainly grant us some insight into his name. And what we can glean from Smash is that the translations are somewhat poor. Arcane is translated as Akane, as seen in Marth's trophy, which comes from misreading of the katakana. A singular vowel is sometimes used to get around having to use the RU character. This isn't the only game with a bad translation either. Brawl continues the trend, calling Rutger from the Binding Blade Rutuga. Needless to say, Smash won't be a reliable source. While it may be why most Westerners know about Fire Emblem, it's riddled with poor translations. That said, while Melee may have been the first appearance of Fire Emblem in the West, it wasn't the first time English was used in Fire Emblem. The credits of FE1 actually feature a short paragraph in English, as well as listing all the characters' names romanized. And in this block of text, we see that Marth's name is listed as Marth. So that settles it then, right? The English here is written a bit funny, especially the "let's go" line, but there's nothing technically wrong with it. However, where it starts to show its cracks is in the cast list. Here we see such famous characters as Jurian, Rinda, and Minerva. While this may be an official source, to say that it's accurate would be somewhat dishonest. Sure, there are a few correct names among them, but to say with certainty that his name is Marth based on this would be shaky at best. Now, before we move on, I do want to talk a bit about why the names are like this, and to do so we need to discuss the Japanese language a bit. Japanese has different phonetics from English, and as such, certain sounds don't exist. In the case that a foreign word is adapted into Japanese, it can undergo certain letter substitutions to fit with the phonetics of the language. If you're a weeb, you should probably be aware of this in regard to L's being replaced by R's already. It's also the case with V's being replaced by B's, and TH's being replaced by S's or Z's. That's also why we've ended up with names like Rinda and Minerva here, and I also think it's the reason we ended up with Marth. In Japanese, Marth's name is spelled Morusu. This, of course, could be interpreted a number of ways, considering it contains both a Ru and a Su. In situations such as these, it's important to look at the context of the game to see what the name is intended to be. Considering that FE1 features a lot of Greek and Roman names, I think that's a good place to start. We have characters like Minerva and Athena, who are named after Roman and Greek goddesses respectively. Logically, it would follow that Marth too might be named after a Roman or Greek god. Specifically in this case, I believe, the Roman god Mars. Mars is a god of war, and while he may be connected to the Greek god Ares, he's seen in a much better light. Naming your protagonist after a god of war in a game where you fight a war makes sense, especially considering the other mythological references. What about the spelling of Mars in Japanese? Due to the nature of katakana adapting foreign words, there isn't exactly one way to spell Mars. Since it's based solely on phonetics, I've seen it spelled 3 different ways as shown on screen. Some sources may give you one of the former, but the fact still stands that Morusu is one of the valid spellings of Mars in Japanese. So to summarize, Marth was likely named after the Roman god Mars, but due to a poorly romanized name in the one English section of FE1's credits, future games took this as his canon name and ran with it. This was kicked off by Smash Melee, which was responsible for the majority of the Western world's exposure to Fire Emblem. From here, games featuring Marth, which did receive English translations, ended up using Marth as well. Obviously, we're in far too deep now and changing to Mars would be unreasonable. Besides, it's not like Marth is a fully incorrect interpretation of the name. It is one of the ways you could read Morusu. That said, you could also read it as Mols or Multhu. The point is, when translating a piece of media, it's important to consider the context. This is the very reason that Google is especially poor at translating Japanese. It's a highly contextual language, and translation software simply isn't equipped to handle it well. Moral of the story is always double check your sources, even official ones. Other moral is never trust a word Kaga writes in English. Have you guys seen some of the stuff he's written? Anyway, that's all for today. Thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and have a great day.